Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. I am Maria Luisa Toledo from IBT, and I'm part of the United Nations Regional Hub for Big Data in Brazil. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the second webinar in our series on climate change indicators. Throughout the series, we'll be hearing from experts who will share valuable insights on utilizing new data sources and technologies in climate change mitigation. Our goal is to facilitate an enriching exchange of information and encourage meaningful discussions on this critical topic. We encourage participants to submit any questions via the chat box, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. Today's webinar is titled Harnessing the Potential of New Data Source for Better Measurement of Tourism Sustainability. And we are honored to have with us our speaker, Apolonija Oblak Flander, Director General of the Statistical Office of the Republic of Slovenia. Mrs. Apolonija holds a master's degree in Social and Political Geography with over 20 years of experience at the Statistical Office. She has made significant contributions in various statistical fields, particularly in demography statistics, population census, and more recently in transport and tourism statistics. She has been deeply involved in the development of official tourism statistics, focusing on the integration of alternative data sources and the creation of sustainability indicators. Her work extends beyond Slovenia, as she is also active at the EU level and internationally. In 2024, she was appointed as chair of the OECD Working Party on Tourism Statistics for the second consecutive year. Apolonija, thank you very much for graciously accepting our invitation and for making time to share your expertise with us despite your busy schedule. We are thrilled to have you here today, and the floor is yours. And you can share your presentation.
Yes. Hello, dobar dan. So I will try to find my presentation. This one, I think. Yes. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, it's okay.
It's in the presentation mode. Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you. So before I start, very briefly, I would really like to thank to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Firstly, for organizing the webinar and for giving me the opportunity to share with you some thoughts and some experiences of Slovenian official statistics with new data sources for better measurement of the tourism sustainability. I don't know how much you know about Slovenia, where it is. So according to some geographical divisions, we are part of Central Europe, or we are part of Eastern Europe, part of South Europe. Actually, we are at the crossroad of all those, I would say, Europes, which influences also our tourism, just to let you know. So when it comes to tourism, Slovenia promotes itself as a green and sustainable tourist destination. And this is not a new paradigm. This paradigm was in Slovenia present already now for more than a decade. And the question for us statisticians is, how can we support the tourism destinations in Slovenia and Slovenia as a whole to be in line with this sustainable paradigm? And at our office, we are currently working on the list of key indicators for measurement of the sustainability of tourism in Slovenia. And to be true, the work is rather challenging, more challenging actually than it was foreseen at the beginning. especially keeping in mind the abundance of already existing lists of indicators, and also keeping in mind that we have really an abundance of data available for measurement, the sustainability of tourism, but of course still some gaps available. So, and also globally and nationally, there are, as I said, several lists of indicators for measurement. In 2024, an important milestone was reached because the global statistical framework was adopted for measurement the sustainability of tourism. And there are also other initiatives in this European dimension and also globally. For example, the initiative at the OECD for the list of indicators for measure the sustainability of tourism, also at Eurostat, the European Statistical Office, the European Travel Commission. They're all very proactive. And on the top of that, in Slovenia, we have also the National Strategy of Tourism, which has a very long list of indicators for monitoring the implementation of the strategy. And among them, there are many indicators who are also related to this sustainability of tourism, which is, of course, in the heart of our strategy. So at present, for us, the official statisticians, it was rather difficult to navigate through all these frameworks, list of indicators, what to choose, what would be the best list of indicators to measure. So at present, we are working together with the OECD to select the list of indicators. And also, and we are hoping to have this list available by the end of the year. And for the 2025, hopefully for the first half of the year, we also foresee to have one tool, one entry point where all those indicators would be available to our users aside of our statistical database. So what's the situation when it comes to measurement of the tourism in Slovenia? First of all, I would like to say that in Slovenia, the contribution of tourism to the GDP can be seen as very modest, between 4 to 5% of the GDP only. But of course, it's an important source for income generation and of employment. And although the tourism contributes only 4 to 5% of the GDP, I would say that we have an abundance of statistical data available for our users to use for decision making, for policy making. We are namely conducting 5 targeted tourism surveys on tourist arrivals and overnight stays. This data is based on administrative sources. We are quarterly conducting the survey on travels of domestic population. We are conducting a survey on foreign tourists and foreign travelers, but both are conducted only every 3 to 5 years. So we are not an island. It's quite challenging for us to conduct these 2 surveys. And we are also conducting a survey on Slovenian travel agencies, which include also financial data on net turnover and expenditures. So already since 2012, based on these data sources, we are compiling tourism satellite accounts. And we are using various data sources to get this more holistic picture of economic contribution of tourism. We are monthly preparing also 2 data sets on employment in tourism, also both from administrative and statistical source, according to the UNWTO, newly on UN tourism definition, and one according to the OECD definition. And on the top of that, we have really a lot of data available on accommodation and food services activities, on businesses, on turnover from the structural business statistics, on earnings, also on electricity consumption in these activities, on greenhouse gas emissions. So as I said, we have a lot of data already available. And when it comes to the production of tourism statistics, we are using various data sources, and each of them have their advantages and limitations. And when data are based on administrative sources, we are able to provide our users very granular data, which means that we can prepare very detailed structures of the data and data at the very lower territorial levels, municipality level, even we could do it at the settlement level. We have very high frequency of the data. We are now producing also near real-time data based on these data sources. The data are timely. We have like only, in some cases, only 25 days delay or 3 days delay from the observed month, and we can provide longer time series. But the question for us official statisticians is always how to stay relevant if official statistics are based on sample surveys, because these data are less granular, they have lower frequency, and the timeliness of data is not really perfect. Sometimes it's even 7 months time lag that we can process the data that is collected in the surveys. And we are also challenged at present with the question where to get data for the measurement of new phenomena, like the CO2 emissions, energy consumption, water consumption in tourism per tourist. And what are the international standards for measuring the soft topics like the sentiment of local population towards tourism, the motivation of tourists for their visit and of their stay. And we are aware that if you're not really flexible in measuring these new phenomena, which are also very relevant for measurement of the sustainability of tourism, you're not actually meeting the emerging data needs. So the question for us is how to stay relevant with official statistics in this very competitive world of data, and to, I would say, to satisfy the user needs. So let me start with the thought that in Slovenia, luckily, the official statistics are widely used and appreciated among the general public, power users and decision makers, and they're somehow counting on us. And I would say that in our case, the official statistics is in the heart of the data-driven governance. And I would say that we are rather proud of this fact, but we want to stay competitive in this competitive world of data, and especially keeping in mind the climate change, the changes in society, economy. So our statistics have a stamp of high quality, and with quality elements such as geographical comparability over time, predictable periodicity, timeliness, granularity, sound methodology. Data are always accompanied with methodological explanations, quality reports. And we are also trying to measure new phenomena at a slower pace, maybe sometimes, as I would say, our competitive world, but with solid and sound methodology. And we always keep in mind all those quality elements when we are trying to measure new phenomena. So when we are in a situation that data users are not using our data and that our data are not referenced, it's the situations where we have data gaps and when the timeliness and granularity do not meet the user's needs. So there are many aspects in how to answer this question, how to stay relevant. And one of them for sure is how to maximize the use of alternative, big, non-structured, alternative data sources to fill in those data gaps and availability of data and indicators. And the number of these alternative data sources is increasing because we live actually in the world of data. And this digitalization has entered in every corner in our personal and business life. So these new alternative data sources enable us, also the official statisticians, to address not only to measure new phenomena, but also timeliness, granularity, and to provide complementary information to already existing statistics. But I would say, now having some years of experiences, that all these new data sources cannot answer to all the challenges, but they're only one piece in this puzzle, how to stay relevant. So in many countries, the access to these new alternative data sources is still a challenge. And especially if official statistics does not want to buy data. And this is especially the case for some countries that are, I would say, not very rich or very small. And this is for sure the case for our country. So, and actually, we could somehow also align these issues with access to alternative data sources, also with issues that are related to the access of administrative sources or other secondary sources that are somehow maintained by the public institutions. So the very important element to gain this access, aside of the regulatory frame, is the element of trust. In official statistics, in our processes, how we treat personal microdata, and this element of trust is even more important when it comes to privately held data. So, how to get access? Are there any differences when it comes to access to administrative and privately held data? There are differences. I tell you, more innovative approaches are needed to access privately held data. Even if the legislation in the country enables you to have access to privately held data, you have to be persistent. You have to have a proactive engagement with the private sector for accessing these new data sources, and it feels like that you're running a marathon. And since getting the access to privately held data is a marathon, we are in Slovenia working on several projects, on several attempts to have access to these alternative data sources in parallel. We are not waiting, that one process finishes, but we are working on several processes, and we are also learning by doing it, how to do it, what worked, what didn't work. So in Slovenia, we have decided to gain this trust for a step-by-step approach. We usually ask in the first step for partly aggregated data. And only then, when we build the trust, we ask for microdata. Because in the aggregated data, they're a bit reluctant, okay, how to aggregate it and so on. It's additional work for them, but they feel more secure than like going directly to the microdata, which is less work maybe for them, but they are a bit reluctant to share microdata in the first step. So in our efforts to gain the access to alternative data sources, we always have, according to our experiences, to take into account four main aspects. Firstly, the human capacity of the statistical office. Are we ready to accept microdata? Or it's easier for us to get some partly aggregated data. The financial aspect. Will we be paying for this data? The sustainability aspect, whether it is foreseen that we will have a sustainable access, will we have a sustainable influx of money to buy data, so that it will not be a standalone project. That we always keep in mind also that the processing of data and the space for accepting this data will be sufficient, that we have an IFRS structure that can support the acceptance of this data. And the last but not least aspect is that we would not jeopardize the trust in official statistics. That some things would not come to the media, look what the statistical office is doing, because this would jeopardize our whole official statistics process and I would say the image of the statistical office. And due to our limited human and financial resources, our office has only 300 employees. We also work in joint projects. Could be supranational. In our case, it's EU projects. For example, we are taking an active part in a consortium that builds the pipeline for the use of MNO data for official statistics. Several national statistical institutes are involved, and also several MNOs in Europe are involved in this project, and we are part of it. So that you have like you join the forces for the access and to build the processes. So I must say that although we were rather skeptical at the beginning, when it comes to alternative data sources, we now see a big potential in these new data sources. There are many reasons why we started to explore these data sources and why we are already using these data sources. And the potentials are, as listed here, to calibrate the data from traditional sources. For example, the mobile network operators' data could be used for the calibration of data from surveys on foreign travelers and tourists to potentially supplement some of the collected data, as it is the case in our research work on using new data sources for the tourism satellite accounts to increase the granularity and timeliness, which is rather obvious, to measure new phenomena, and to merge it with traditional sources. This is for us mainly the case with scan data used for the inflation, that we merge it with other prices that we collect monthly. But this is not in tourism. So I will mention only some of the challenges that we encountered when working with alternative data sources. The first one is how to build the trust with the owners of alternative data sources to overcome the regulatory obstacles to get access to alternative data sources. Then how to establish the sustainable access to new sources. How to enhance required expertise within the organization. We are a very small organization. So, the data scientists are not waiting at the door to work at the statistical office. They would rather go outside. So you need to build somehow capacity that it's of the human resources that are able to work with these data. So you need to increase the IT capacity of the systems to be able to accept these very large and diverse data sources. Then the absorption of these data sources can be also a challenge, because you have to have prepared the processes to accept data and then to integrate them. And from the statistical point of view, and also in the context of measuring sustainability of tourism, is also a big challenge how to bring the content of alternative data sources closer to the statistical concepts, traditional concepts, which are there already for 2 or 3 decades, and also how to explore the potential to integrate them in this or another way in your processes. And always keep in mind that the outcome has to have high quality standards, that you have really predefined statistical concepts and methodologies. So the challenge is also going a bit away, how to start thinking out of the box to be able to highlight some of the aspects beyond strictly defined statistical methodologies. So, and the last one would be, I guess, how to build a partnership with the owners, that you have somehow also the influence, maybe as in the case of administrative sources, on what they are collecting, how they are collecting, how they're processing the data that they have. So try to find, also to influence the private sector to understand the needs of official statistics, and try to incorporate some processing of the data, also keeping in mind the needs of official statistics. So, although I have listed many challenges and the challenges prevail, the pragmatic and explorative approach can give you very good results. I would say that in Slovenia, we started very modestly, but we already have some case studies and practical experiences with these new data sources. And we are actually very proud of regular dissemination of several experimental statistics based on these data sources. And some of them are also on the domain of tourism. This means that we have overcome the majority of the challenges and obstacles. So I think we could be proud of us ourselves, although we are not. I mean, this is still, I would say, explorative work, but some very good results. I would say that the only challenge, the bigger challenge for us official statisticians is how to make this transition from experimental statistics to official statistics, and how to gain this international comparability. And I think this is the task for the global statistical community in the following years. And we need to join the forces, share good experiences, and try also from these alternative data sources, to bring them closer together to reach this comparability among countries. I would say that in our case, the key to success was that we were very transparently communicating the benefits of these new data sources, the methodology behind the data disseminated, and what these data sources are bringing and what they're not bringing, And it was also how we communicated what are the differences with official statistics where similar data are disseminated from official statistics. So I believe, as I said, it's important to continuously work on new projects and on several projects in parallel. And I would advise just like be courageous, try, get experiences, improve, and always keep in mind that every success to get access, that every access to these data sources is a big success, and you should be proud of it. And then it's on you how to communicate it, how to promote it. So now to very concrete examples, what we are doing on the domain of tourism statistics and how to measure sustainability of tourism better. So firstly, I have decided to share with you, although these sources are not alternative data sources, but are administrative data sources, how maybe to give you some ideas how to profit maybe sometimes from low-hanging fruits to enrich your indicators to better monitor the sustainability of tourism. So from our ambition to further exploit various administrative sources, we have built a counter tourism daily, an interactive tool with near real-time accommodation data on arrivals and overnight stays. And also we further explored the administrative source on persons in employment for tourism purposes. And then I will show you some examples on alternative data sources, what we have done and what we are publishing and how we did it and what are the methodological challenges behind. Okay, so firstly, the two examples that I said, so further exploitation of the potential of various administrative sources on the tourism daily and on employment data. So based on the push of power users in Slovenia, mainly the Slovenian Tourism Board, to have more timely data available on the tourism flows, we have built an interactive tool with very rich descriptive statistics, which are available to the users in real time, only 3 days after the observation day. And it's not only a simple counter, because the arrivals and overnight stays data are in the tool presented by countries from which the guests came, by statistical regions, by selected municipalities. Why selected municipalities? You have to keep in mind that Slovenia is small, and some of our municipalities are really small, because they have only around 500 inhabitants. So, and when it comes to tourism, of course, they don't even have many accommodation establishments. So due to statistical confidentiality, we needed to have like a threshold for the presentation of the data. And we are also presenting these data by accommodations, by the type of accommodation. And what is also very important, that besides the dissemination of these data through this interactive tool, which is very friendly, data are on a weekly basis stored in our Esta database every Thursday for the previous week. And this Esta database is an open source, and it's machine readable, and it could be easily used. So data are available for free to all the users. So these data could be really, the potential is enormous for the decision makers, for making models and everything. What I found the most important is that although these data in this interactive tool have a status of experimental, is that these data are actually prepared according to the same methodology as monthly accommodation statistics, basically, as it is the international recommendation for the preparation of accommodation statistics, so arrivals and overnight stays. And the only difference why it is experimental, because they undergo less data cleaning. So we do additional data cleaning for the publication of monthly statistics on accommodation on the 25th day after the reference month. And to maybe explain it even better. So when data on accommodation statistics are derived from alternative data sources, such as digital platforms, many methodological steps are needed to bring this kind of big and rather unstructured data closer to the methodologies used for official statistics, which is then comparable over time and countries. And not to mention that the access is problematic. Many countries are now buying data from digital platforms on short-term rentals. And if the money is not there, the influx of data is not sustainable. So many things, not to mention only that the processing of this data is really challenging it to bring it closer to the UN standards. So for us, we were very lucky, because in Slovenia, to build such a tool, the road was paved already in 2018, when the register of accommodation establishments and the system for e-reporting of arrivals and overnight stays, and also on occupancy, was established. So we have been observing these two new data sources and using data for official statistics, and that they stabilized, so that the quality of data in both systems are, I would say, of excellent quality. I know that countries which have not such systems as we do are more challenged to build something like that. Therefore, they are trying to find new alternative data sources, such as I mentioned, these digital platforms for accommodation, short-term rentals. So, as I said, this tool was developed as a response to users' needs. It was not just to have fun facts here, but to enable quick response to the current situation in tourism in Slovenia. It also enables modeling of tourism flows in the future for the policy making, and for better destination management, because we have data also by municipalities, regions, and so on. And this new interactive tool was launched in spring 2004. And I would say the response from the users was really great. They really appreciated that we made this effort, you know, to exploit further administrative source, and we used our knowledge and to bring it, I mean, really to the users, that they can use it in different ways. Now I will just briefly mention how we further exploited, let's say, the register of employed persons. This register is maintained in Slovenia already since 1995. Also Slovenia, I mean, in comparison to other, for example, EU member states, we are quite unique because this source is really amazing. So, but we needed to make this effort, you know, to produce, to disseminate data for tourism, you know, because the social dimension of measurement of sustainability of tourism is also very important. This came up very much when the framework for measurement of sustainability of tourism was on the table, when discussed at the UN level. And we said, okay, let's see what we can do from existing administrative source. So we are now very happy that we have now data available from January 2020, and we were challenged which methodology to use, because on one side we have the UN methodology. This is more in line with the tourism satellite accounts methodology. And on the other side, we had also OECD methodology, and which data is then the real data, the actual data that it's valid for Slovenia. Nevertheless, we decided, because we also need to report both data sets to OECD and UN, to also offer our users sound methodology, but for both methodologies. So, I mean, this is just an example how to encourage others, you know, to further exploit administrative sources to cover this same social dimension of measurement of sustainability of tourism. And now to the alternative data sources. I will now give you two examples. One, let me start with the mobile network operators data. So in 2019, the Statistical Office, together with the Bank of Slovenia, managed to negotiate with the 4 biggest Slovene mobile network operators to start to provide us pre-processed and partly aggregated monthly data on roaming based on predefined methodology. So Bank of Slovenia and we predefined the methodology. And these data are sent to the Agency for Communication Networks and Services of the Republic of Slovenia. This agency sums up data from each mobile network operator. So there we cannot see how much is the share of one mobile network operator, because sometimes this is an issue. So, and basically now, I think we have all MNOs reporting to this agency. And so they aggregate data for all MNOs, and then they transfer the same data set to the Bank of Slovenia and to the Statistical Office. And the basic idea, this would be more for the methodologists and experts, the basic idea behind this methodology applied on the mobile network operators data on roaming is to define, based on the duration of mobile data transfer sessions, so the length, different categories of visitors. The transit traveler is defined as the user that had the mobile data switched on during 2 consecutive days up to 6 hours. The same day visitor type 1 from 6 to 12 hours. The same day visitor 2 type 2 from 12 to 18 hours. And tourist, so in 2 consecutive days from 18 to 48 hours. The same rules are applied for the classification of the Slovene SIM card holders, so the subscribers, if they're traveling abroad and roaming in a foreign networks, as for the foreign SIM card holders roaming in Slovenian network. So the data on the number of their visits, and in the case of tourists, also on the duration, number of days staying in Slovenia, are aggregated by month, by the type of the visitor, and by the country of the mobile network operator of the subscriber. And we have now the time series already from January 2020 up to June 2024. I find this data, and we also noticed among our users, very valuable for understanding the volumes of the passenger flows from and to abroad. And let me show you some figures now. So firstly, we have published this data in August. This was really experimental. And since 2023, we are quarterly publishing monthly international tourism and visitor flows based on roaming data. And so far, we have monthly data available, as I said, since January 2021. And on this chart, data on foreign users of mobile services and their travels to Slovenia based on roaming data are presented, which are based on the methodology that I described before. So it's quite obvious now, knowing that the position of Slovenia is really at the crossroads, that Slovenia is rather transit country, and we have very strong flows of tourists heading toward the countries on the Balkans, from the Western and Central Europe, and also very strong road freight flows of heavy trucks, but these are in the direction, in different direction, northeast to southwest. And in these transit passengers, also those truck drivers are included. They're not tourists, let's say. But based on the methodology that we developed, we now can divide the tourists and transit passengers. And as I explained, with the roaming data, we also have information on the flows to other countries of Slovene SIM card holders, subscribers. And also here we see that many of them just go for transit or half a day visit or same day visit. So they're not really tourists. And then in Europe, I don't know whether you know, European Statistical Office managed to negotiate from 4 big platforms to obtain data on guests staying in the short stay accommodation. So Slovenia signed a non-disclosure agreement with Eurostat, European Statistical Office, and we are obtaining this data now already since 2018. And we are also disseminating this data in our database and as experimental data as Eurostat, but we are more focused on our data. So we receive only data for Slovenia. So we are very happy that we have this data. So we are not paying. It's pre-aggregated, it's pre-prepared. We just cross-check and we disseminate. But there is a challenge for us in Slovenia. How to explain our users, because in our case, we have accommodation statistics with full coverage. All accommodation statistics are in our monthly statistics and all arrivals and overnight stays. So it was very challenging to explain in the release and also in the methodological explanations that these data represent just a segment of guests in accommodation establishments that are advertising their accommodations also online, on digital platforms, booking.com, Airbnb, TripAdvisor, Expedia. But that these data are also, same data are reported also through our e-tourism system. So it's not that we could add, in some countries where they have a threshold in monthly accommodation statistics, they add this data, but in our case, it's just like one layer of the total. So we know how many of the guests came to Slovenia and booked a room also through the platform. We, of course, there is always this, I would say, complaint, yeah, but you know, there's also gray economy and so on. So therefore, in 2019, we have made an analysis and we have checked two platforms, booking.com and Airbnb, and we have in 2019 detected that there is approximately 5% of gray economy when it comes to accommodation statistics. So there is, of course, there is in any activity, there is. So in our case was this. So yeah, so we are very happy that so I said the communication is very important to your users, what these data are and what they are not. Then another example, it's actually more from transport statistics. But although these data are from transport statistics, they were very welcomed among our tourism experts, keeping in mind that Slovenia is a transit country and tourists are traveling to Slovenia, and also tourists whose destination is Slovenia encounter traffic jams on Slovenian motorways. So it's also tourism related because, of course, partly they're part of these flows, but also what to expect and what is going on our, we have like a cross of motorways, which are the main, you can also see it on the picture. So we are now publishing since January 2022 monthly data from automatic traffic counters on passenger vehicle traffic and also by traffic of goods vehicles. Since January 2020, we are also publishing monthly data from smart electricity meters. Also, these data are disseminated as experimental statistics, and they're providing information on the consumption of electricity by households and business entities, and also by economic activity and by municipality. And we could use this source, since data are by economic activity, also to disseminate data on accommodation and food service activities. So meaning we have now the monthly consumption of electricity in accommodation and food services activities, monthly basis since January 2020, these data were also well perceived among our users. And we have this data also at the municipality level. So maybe about the ongoing work, about our plans. So as you see, we started modestly. Our goal was always not to stuck up with the project and that nothing is disseminated to our users. So we always keep in mind that there will be something available for our users, although the start is modest, but that you can already have some data available for measurement of sustainability of tourism. So we are also very intensively working on alternative data sources for the compilation of the tourism satellite accounts. The reason for this research work is that the input for the tourism satellite accounts, among other sources, are two very financially and from the side of human resources burdensome surveys, which we conduct every 4 to 5 years. as I mentioned, on the travels of foreign tourists and travelers. And we are searching for data that would be available to supplement these two surveys and to have this data available on annual basis, because now the frequency of compilation of the tourism satellite accounts is every 3 years. So we would like to have them available every year. So, and we know that when measuring sustainability of tourism, the environmental dimension of sustainability is also very important, and that these data are less available. We know that in environmental statistics, usually you have at the national level data, the time lag from the observation year is sometimes a year and a half. So how to progress faster? That's why we have decided to develop new indicators based on microdata. Namely, we are now starting with the process to link data from the register of accommodation establishment that I mentioned to you before with microdata from smart electricity meters. We already were promised to receive from 2 electricity distributors microdata. So we are looking forward to get it and to do this work, the pilot, and to progress towards the compilation of this indicator, for example, not only per guest, per tourist in the accommodation establishment. And the same analogy will be used for the water meters. We are now, I think we have already negotiated to obtain microdata and to link this data with the accommodation establishment, which will enable us to calculate the indicators per, I don't know, overnight stay, per arrival, and I don't know, by a type of accommodation establishment. We are also working on web scraping of online job advertisements. So it's also on tourism domain. What is the availability of jobs? And we are continue working on access to get micro data from the mobile network operators. So maybe for those who are more in the methodology, let me just check how much time I have. Okay, almost finished. So very briefly, of course, there are many challenges when you're using alternative data sources. I'll have here just 2 examples. One, which is the payment card transaction data, which we are exploring for the use for the compilation of the tourism satellite accounts. It's very challenging to detect what is a tourist and non-tourist transaction, so spent for tourism. It's very challenging, the time gap, because some payments are done in advance. For example, you buy a flight ticket already half a year in advance, and this is not in the same year that you observe in your data. So the tourism satellite is from 1 year, but the expenditure was already the year before. There is a challenge that you receive data by the country of the card issuer, not by the card holder. So for example, the card could be issued, I don't know, in Austria, but the card holder is from Italy. So you cannot attribute the amounts to the right country. There is this issue with the payments to the digital platforms, you know. It goes to the country where the headquarters of the digital platform is, not to your country directly. So you don't detect those things. So many challenges that you need, but we are working on. We were not discouraged. And we have big hopes with this data that we also quarterly receive from the Bank of Slovenia, pre-aggregated and so on. And then maybe another, maybe more MNO related data, specific challenges. You have to work with various assumptions when using this kind of data. So for example, the assumption that the country of the SIM card is the country of the residence of the usual environment of the tourist. You have the overestimation, as I said, because also the SIM cards in the cars, you know, you have them there. You are also overestimating, and you need to find ways how to, I don't know, deduct those truck drivers, for example, you know. So many challenges, but if you are sound with the methodology when you're publishing this data, all these data are very much appreciated among users. And just to conclude, some of my final thoughts for the way forward. A step-by-step and pragmatic approach can give you good results, for sure. And don't get discouraged too quickly. Official statistics should proactively prepare itself or themselves, the NSIs, to absorb already existing and new data sources which are emerging all the time. It's on us to address and proactively communicate the ethical considerations and data protection views. And we are actually the ones who are skilled to balance the innovation and ethical responsibility when working with alternative data sources. And to stay relevant and trustworthy, we need to find synergies among ourselves in knowledge, sharing tools, harmonized methodologies. So I think this statistical international comparison is something that not all domains have. And it's on us to use it to the maximum possible extent to have at the end comparable data over time and among countries. Thank you. I was a bit long, but I hope we still have time for the questions.
Yes, thank you very much. We still have time for I think 2 questions. But first, I want to thank you for sharing such a comprehensive perspective on how this new data source can enhance our understanding of tourism sustainability. In particular, for us, tourism is vital. Actually, it's vital to the economies of many countries, but particularly for us, it's very important. For instance, in Caribbean, tourism makes up 26% of GDP. In Latin America, it represents 10% of our GDP. So congratulations for the work you are doing in Slovenia. I'm sure it's a great example for us on how to deal with this digital transformation. It's a challenge for everyone. And we have some questions in the chat, but I would like to ask one myself. As different countries adopt varying approaches to assess sustainability, how can we ensure that these measurements are comparable across countries? I think it's a challenge.
Yes. I somehow already touched this topic in my presentation. So basically, what I'm observing right now is that many countries are working on alternative data sources. And especially on the domain of tourism, they're all very proactive. But the outcomes, what, I don't know, Austria is doing, what Canada is doing, what Slovenia is doing, you know, these outcomes are not comparable. We all are trying to come closer to the basic statistical concepts in tourism, which were defined already in 2008, for example, and then for tourism satellite counts, and also as a tourism as a whole, and now with new framework. But there's still, these products are still not comparable. That's why I have decided maybe to, in detail, explain what is the methodology behind, when we are using MNO roaming data. And I have already agreed with Spain. Spain also very proactive in this domain, and maybe for you in the like Spanish world of Spanish language world, you can use their experiences as well. But Spain and Slovenia, we agreed, the statistical offices, to work on their experiences, on our experiences, and try to propose a common approach which could be implementable also in other countries, either working with roaming data or some other things, you know, or our example with the employment data, you know. Okay, it's a challenge. We have two definitions. Which one to use? How to go ahead, you know? Okay, let's do it this way. You know, there is a list, which activities should be there, I mean, and so on. So now it's on us, as I said at the end, it's on us, the statistical community, which is very much, I would say, linked and also very, I would say, democratic and also very forward-looking, you know, because we are forward-looking to have this stamp at the end, that this is the quality that we want to achieve. That's why I was speaking so much about the quality at the beginning, because when you're using alternative data sources, I would say you reach some walls where you cannot achieve all the standards of the quality. So now it's on us, now working for several years now, or already a decade, on alternative data sources, now to bring those concepts closer together, which are still close to the traditional concepts, but at the same time, we need to loosen a little bit our strict definitions and to be able to give our users more, to highlight some new aspects of the same phenomenon. I don't know whether I answered your question.
Yes, but you gave great clarifications. And I think what you have said is related to two questions we have. Claudio asked, regarding the quality elements of official statistics, in your opinion, which of them is more challenging when dealing with tourism statistics?
In tourism statistics is whether we are able to measure all aspects of sustainability of tourism, because there are still many data gaps. And then the second one, so there is a gap, you know, because the quality is also that you have statistics available. So it's the gap. And in some cases where we have data, these data are not granular enough to be able to work at the destination level. When it comes to environmental aspects of tourism sustainability, we have the quality issue with the timeliness. In some cases, also periodicity. We have data only available every year, but the users would need them more frequently. So many of those aspects. And then at the end, also when we are trying to fill in those data gaps, also the problem of comparability over time, and also to provide longer time series, to be able to see whether you are progressing towards your goals in the right way. So all the aspects are here. Sorry to say that, but if you keep them in mind all the time and trying to I would say, reach the quality that you have in some other domains, I mean, you're on the right way.
Yes, thank you. It's really difficult to choose one aspect of the quality, but the point is that we are progressing, and that's the most important. And we have more questions, but to not extend so much, I'm going to bring more one. Maria Santoyo asks, what would be the first steps for countries that do not keep such complete statistics?
So I would say to find the right three things. Firstly, try to be present in the country, what you do, how you do, especially if you come from official statistics, and try to convince different ministries to establish administrative sources which are maintained on a regular basis. This demands, of course, the regulatory framework to be built so that whenever they are doing those things and whether they are already on the way doing that, you are invited to co-create the administrative sources that they capture also the phenomenon, the variables that you would need. Secondly, of course, in a short term, of course, sometimes you need to invest and conduct surveys, but there are many disadvantages with the surveys. So it's difficult to get all the time the money to conduct it. So, and it's difficult to have them very frequently. Also in our office, we do on a quarterly basis, for example, the survey on the travels of domestic population, you know, but we are doing it, I can be very open, because there is a EU regulation that we have to do it. I'm not sure that if our office would be spending, keeping in mind the contribution of tourism to the GDP, conducting it every quarter, if this would not be the case. So basically, and so definitely start with administrative sources. If try to find what data are already there. If new administrative sources are to be established, be involved. Try to put some variables which are tourism related and so on. Then try to find some money for some of the surveys. This is not a sustainable way because also there are many drawbacks from the surveys, and try to combine these surveys with alternative data sources. So be proactive on the domain of getting access to privately held data. Sometimes you would need also to change the statistical legislation to have the access. So we are quite lucky in Slovenia that we have, for us, we are in, we have access to privately held data. Although we have that in the statistical law, it's not always the case that they're only willing to give us data. It's a long process, 2 to 3 years to get this data. And also European statistics law also now will include this access to privately held data for official statistics. So it's a good balance, and like you have to be very proactive in all domains. You cannot sleep on any of them. So it's like, wow, a lot. But first of all, maybe first start would be to find in a country a consensus what you would like to measure. Start with a list of indicators that are relevant for your country, and then see at the national level, destination level, and then see what you already have, what are possibilities, and start working on them to eventually have all this data available.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have to finish, but I think we could have many other aspects that could be discussed here. Thank you, Apollonia. Congratulations for the work you have been doing, and your insights were incredible, enlightening. We are very grateful for your time and expertise. Thank you very much.
The pleasure was mine. I'm sorry if my examples were not, if they were too, I don't know, too much ambitious. But as I said, we should start very pragmatically, step by step, so don't be discouraged. And I'm really happy that you invited me to share some of my views, my thoughts, and please, I'm available if you have any further questions, or if you would like to have more insights how we are doing things. Me and my colleagues are here maybe to help, to advise, and to share more details. We can also have like bilateral meetings, you know, for a particular alternative data source, maybe how we advance, how we approach. So really, we are here to help because we, the statisticians, we are always willing, you know, to share knowledge, especially with the biggest goal that at the end of the day, our data are comparable, you know, so yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. I would also like to extend thank you to all of our participants, as well as to ECLAC, Knowledge Transfer Network, for providing the Zoom platform for today's event. And please note that the recording of this webinar will soon be available on the Hub website. And finally, I would like to invite everyone to join our next webinar, which will happen on November 21st, featuring Dr. José Marengo. Dr. José Marengo is the coordinator of research and development at CEMADEN. CEMADEN is the National Center for Monitoring and Early Warning of Natural Disasters in Brazil. And this webinar will be conducted in Spanish. And thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
До свидания.
Ciao.
Ciao.